Welcome to our Mobilizing Leadership production of Living Leadership. This series works from the premise that leadership is not a title, but a mindset. Filmed in one take, it explores how people navigate beyond the status quo and captures their insights on what leadership looks like across their work, life, and community. The Discovery Whiteboard session is facilitated by Stuart Morse, and we welcome our guest. There we go. So we're here with another discussion around what does it mean to live leadership and how leadership is showing up. And so I'm so happy here today to have Terra Tate joining me. And Terra, thank you for doing this. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what position you hold or professionally, and so we can understand the kind of the position you're coming from.
Okay, well, I am the Chief Operating Officer at Span Construction and Engineering. And it's a senior executive leadership role, and I'm also on the board of directors for our ESOP.
Very good, very good. So how does, and I know this is going to be kind of a broad topic, and sometimes it's a question that is more vague, but how does leadership in those roles that you're coming from and that you're operating in, how does leadership show up in that space?
I think it shows up on the entire spectrum.
And tell me more about that.
Some people are, in my experience, some people are born to naturally lead, and other people have to work at it.
Okay.
And most people have to work at it.
Most people. Okay, so
myself included.
Okay, so let me. So that's kind of on that's a spectrum, right? So
there's a whole spectrum.
So I'm going to draw my little traditional stick figures So we've got this two pathways. You said some people are natural at it, and others have to work. And you say most of the people are here. So tell me a little bit about the where it's natural for folks. What do you notice in that when you say natural? What do you mean by that?
Some people naturally want to help others succeed and help them grow where they're at and can meet them where they are. And some leaders are good leaders because they can take a bunch of information and disseminate it right down and make a quick decision that's good for the organization.
So are sometimes those people together, or do you see, well, sometimes it's this and sometimes it's the other?
Most of the time it's separate. And so the work that you have to do is to be able to put those together.
Okay, and the second one, help me, did you say that disseminates information or distills it down?
Yeah, you can distill it down to quick points.
To quick points. And then you said that the real thing is in these natural leaders is how do you get those two things to interface with each other?
Right.
So do you think that's in that space, if I'm understanding what you're saying, is they naturally either go here, they naturally go there, but so your challenge up here with the natural leader is to start to
That's correct.
Get those two to work together. So take what they naturally might be good at, but then also try to infuse this one, or if they're good with this, and to infuse that one.
Right.
Take us down here to the people this other group where, as you said, most of us are. Describe that.
Yeah, so it seems that in leadership, a lot of people are put in leadership roles because they have subject matter expertise.
Okay. I like how you put quotes around that.
Yeah.
Leadership.
Well,
right?
it means many things, right?
Okay.
Leadership
So,
can mean all kinds of things.
It means a lot of things, but a lot of times it means, hey, you've got this role, and in that role you're a subject matter expert. Okay?
Right.
And then what happens? Or what are the other dimensions of this?
So they are good at the work, and so they're put in this role of being in charge of the work. And then they start to realize, oh, now I'm in charge of the people who do the work. And that's
now all of a sudden you
that's
get
where the
this big
challenge
old
comes
plus
in.
sign. You're like, oh, what?
Right.
What does plus sign you go? Now I'm also in charge of the people. Okay. And so how does that dynamic start to play out?
That's a good question.
So they show up, and so okay, you said, oh, there's leadership. I've been put into a role because I know the content and I'm good at that, doing that work, and all of a sudden, oh, I have to. I'm in charge of people, and then what do you see starts to happen with that, and when all of a sudden these two get put together?
Well, sometimes the work doesn't progress as fast, or it doesn't evolve the way that leader expected it to, because they didn't realize that they have to nurture those people, and they assume that because that person knows how to do the thing or build the widget, that they also know how to make decisions on their own, and that they still need somebody to help coach them and guide them through pitfalls that come their way.
Right.
Or
so the risk, if I'm saying, is that the work can slow, and then you like what you said here. I added this word down here, nurture. That the essence of this upper one is we're good at doing. It's more of a let's do the work, and then this is when I'm in charge of her, but I actually have to nurture. And so would it be fair to say that this is where all of a sudden the challenge becomes? Right.
So then what happens is that subculture within the larger culture of the company starts to become impacted. And if that leader isn't realizing their role as a leader, it'll impact it in a negative way. And they don't understand why, and they don't know how to fix it.
Right. And why? And is it because... well, I think does it go back to this piece that it's go ahead.
Because they were promoted because of this right here. They weren't vetted for their leadership skills. They weren't vetted for the people part of the job.
So, okay, and then so now you've got this situation, and so. And I think I want to go back to these kind of quotation marks. They got to put in this because this leadership role. Well, now all of a sudden this thing has to evolve. What does it evolve to? I mean, now what happens to this thing that's in quotations? What happens to that?
Right. Well, hopefully the leader of this leader can put some parameters around these are the bare minimum expectations that I have of you as a leader. This is what your subculture needs to look like. You need to do X, Y, Z at a bare minimum, because everybody has their own nuances about their leadership style.
So the first thing what I'm hearing you say is you've got to give them a foundation. Would that be fair to say on that?
Yes.
And then you say, so start with some basic things. Give structure to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what does that do? What does that do for them? I mean, they've got this thing. They've got this big question mark happening for them, and you're trying to get them to do this more elaborate thing. And also, okay, step one, give them some structure around that. What usually happens then? What does that allow that leader to then do?
I think it unlocks some. It unlocks a little bit of a pathway for them, so they know how to move forward with things like performance management and mentoring. If they can see the steps and start to build a formula around it for themselves, then they know, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and then they can start filling in the gaps with their everyday experiences.
So, I'm thinking about as you're describing this and I'll just put this out there and see what you think. These people are good at work, at doing the work. It almost sounds like you're framing up a new form of work for them to do.
Yes. Yes.
Because if they're good at doing this and they're subject matter expert, they figured out this. I mean, as you're describing this, I could see you're describing the elements of why they're good at this. Because they have a formula, they have steps, they have an understanding of to do the work. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're giving them a structure around this thing that kind of fits possibly how they see the world.
Correct. Yeah, if somebody were to ask me, what does it feel like to be a leader? I would say it's rewarding. It's a lot of hard work. It's something that you have to feed and nurture consistently over time. You can't read a book here or there and adopt a style and then be done. You have to constantly be checking yourself and evolving based on who you're leading, what environment you're in, what constraints you're up against.
So it sounds like what you're describing is when you that it's almost infinite.
Yes.
It's not finite, to where this can sometimes be finite.
Correct.
I understand that. That's why you hired me. So just do that work. And you're saying, well, but then when you add leadership into this, you're talking about people and nurturing. And by the way, you can have some processes to it, but so much of those processes, the inputs, are just continuous.
Right.
And I heard elements in there. How does so this continuous work on it is part of that, just that it's because there's constant change going on around it.
Right.
And what's a big impact of that constant change? Or that's fueling it? Is it that because you're dealing with people?
Well, it could be people. It could be a different team. You can lead and be over one team and things go really well, and then you get a different team and you have to learn them.
Okay, so you've got to. Okay, so this nurturing is, you're not just nurturing the static problem. It's effectively you're working with people,
right?
And every person's different.
And the jobs that they're doing, you can lead somebody at a job that they love and thrive at, and then give them an assignment that's hard for them, and now you have to nurture them through their hardships.
Okay.
And through the obstacles that they overcome. Even though it might not be an obstacle that you overcome, you have to step into their shoes and look at the problem through their lens and then know how to help them through that.
So this idea, I put triangle for change here, but there's constant change in jobs, there's constant change in people, so therefore it can't be so very rigid and formulaic. It's gotta be nurturing. What kind of so you had this idea that it's rewarding, it's hard work, needs continuous work. What type of mindset does that then require? I mean, if we were to make a list down here of, by the way, you're going to need to have these kind of skills or this kind of mindset.
Yeah. And I know that we've talked about this in the past, about how there's me and there's you and there's we. And throughout, my experience, I tell people sometimes there's me decisions and there's you decisions and there's we decisions, and each party needs to know what that is. So there's sometimes there's me decisions. Me decisions. I decide.
And then there's you decisions, and then there's we decisions.
And so I think it's important to know that you're going to navigate through all of that. You've got to be adaptable, and you can't just think about things, how it makes you feel, how it impacts you.
Adaptable.
You have to be really curious and ask a lot of questions. Investigate.
Because be careful, you think you know.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's think about what are the pitfalls? What are some of the pitfalls? Is it that you could say, hey, by the way, this is what you have to watch? Because I wonder about. Okay, if I'll go back to what you framed up here. Some people naturally kind of do this, and they're working in a different space, helping others, or just doing quick fit. The rest of us are down in this space, and then we get promoted up, and then all of a sudden it's. I know, like we like strength finders, they talk about the Clifton strengths, where they talk about blind spots. What kind of blind spots do these people need to be aware of if they're trying to do all this?
A big one for me is, and that I've seen happen, is just because you have a title doesn't mean people will automatically follow you.
All right. So title does not equal people follow.
You have to do the work, because people will follow you regardless of your title. If you're leading them in a positive way.
Great. Are there others in there that you would think that blind spots or?
Focusing, on yourself too much and not on the other person and your team and how they interact with one another and interact with the environments that you put them in.
Well, I know that.
Maybe I'm not going down the path you're wanting me to
go.
No,
I think it's, no, you are. I mean, this is your path. I think, I'm thinking about it, listening to you talk around this, focusing on yourself too much, the idea that, and I'll go back to this piece. You get promoted up because you know this stuff real well. Okay, well then you get change in things happening. Is your default, well, I'll just bring I know the answer.
Right.
And by the way, I need to let you know the answer. Versus if you got all this change going on, that, hey, what I was hearing you say, be careful you don't focus too much on what you know, that with all the change, that there's insight here that may, that balance between, yes, what you know and why you got here, around what these other people might know that you could nurture. I guess I'm going to the space of nurturing new knowledge that could inform you. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's important, and it's hard. You have to practice it, but you have to remember to bring everybody with you. You bring your team with you wherever you're going. If you're going to go down in a trench, take them with you. If you're sending them in the trench, try to go down there a little bit with them.
Bring people with you.
And when you rise up, make sure you're bringing them up with you.
Very good. Any other thoughts just that around what we've shaped up here that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I want to avoid getting too philosophical, but I also want to avoid too much leadership 101 also. So.
Well, and what I think you framed up here, and you've, well, let me ask you this, when you see this happen successfully, what have you noticed that can happen?
Oh yeah, so when your team can finish your sentences or can see your body language and know what you need, I mean, that's good synergy. And when you know what they need by just observing them or hearing them,
what can happen is synergy, right?
Yes.
But the way you described synergy was interesting.
And then the work just flows.
So you get, okay, so we've talked about this state of flow, synergy, state of flow, where it's hard to describe, but you know it when you see it.
Yep.
You'll know when it happens.
The work becomes effortless. And
so around that, as kind of a final thought to wrap this up, I'm thinking that it's this balance between what you know and your expertise and what you don't know, because if you can balance those two and make it more about nurturing that space of unknowing and change that people are involved in the job, you can all of a sudden uncover this synergy and state of flow.
Yep.
But you can't go, oh, by the way, here's the formula to get there. The formula is non-linear, or it's not an exact path.
That's
other than
correct.
you just have to step into it.
That's
And
correct.
it'll shake, but you have to step it into a different way.
Yeah, and once you've experienced this, and then when you're with a different team or with that same team around something different and you don't experience, boy, you can really tell the difference.
So how hard is it when someone goes through this and this happens? How hard is it for them to tell someone else, hey, by the way, another leader, I would think that something like this, there'd be some difficulty to pass it on to someone else to go, hey, by the way, this is the path.
Yeah, it's almost like they have to experience it once or twice and then they get it.
So it almost, maybe a viral approach. Mm-hmm. You've got to touch it and feel it and experience that flow before you can truly understand it. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I think it goes back to, you got to make sure you bring people with you. Absolutely. Because that's the only way they'll really understand what's happening.
Absolutely, and that's where they feel comfortable taking risks with you, and when they know what risks they can and can't take, I mean, that's success too.
Right.
You know.
Well, Terra, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
doing this fascinating. I know we've talked, over, but this is new and very interesting on how you were thinking about this. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Yep, anytime. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you to our guest and the Sprint Ahead Mobilizing Leadership people who are collectively working to create leadership for all through shared purpose, connected communities, new opportunities to learn, and action-based leadership experiences. We look forward to hearing your insights. Please connect and move forward with us.